Good morning. I'm Nova Blake, and this is your complete political briefing for Tuesday, April 28th, 2026. Today, Cole Allen is charged with attempted assassination of the president. Iran submits a new peace proposal that Secretary of State Rubio says is better than expected. And King Charles and Queen Camilla arrive at the White House for a state visit. Let's get into it, starting with the top stories from across the American political landscape. Thomas Allen, the 31-year-old California teacher accused of opening fire at the White House Correspondents' Dinner on Saturday, appeared in federal court in Washington on Monday and was formally charged with attempted assassination of the president, a charge that carries a potential sentence of life in prison. Federal prosecutors told Magistrate Judge Matthew Sharbaugh that Allen had reserved a room at the Washington Hilton on April 6th, nearly 3 weeks before the dinner, and had traveled by train from Los Angeles to Washington over several days before charging through a security checkpoint armed with a 12-gauge shotgun, a .38 caliber pistol, and 3 knives. Prosecutors released a pre-attack email Allen had allegedly sent to family members at 8:40 p.m. that evening, which he signed as Cole, quote, "Friendly Federal Assassin, Allen," outlining his targets and rules of engagement, and stating that cabinet officials were to be prioritized from highest ranking to lowest. Allen did not enter a plea. He remains detained, and a detention hearing has been scheduled for Thursday. Iran has submitted a new formal peace proposal to the United States, delivered through Pakistani mediators, that offers to reopen the Strait of Hormuz in exchange for an end to the American naval blockade, but which postpones all nuclear negotiations to a later separate phase. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told reporters Monday the proposal is better than what we thought they were going to submit, but made clear that the nuclear program remains the core issue and that any final deal must block Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. President Trump convened a Situation Room meeting Monday with his national security team to review the proposal, and the White House confirmed it was under active review. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, meanwhile, flew to Moscow on Monday and met with Russian President Vladimir Putin, who expressed strong support for Iran, saying Moscow intends to continue its strategic relations with Tehran. King Charles III and Queen Camilla arrived in Washington on Monday for a formal state visit, the first by a British monarch since 1991. Their visit to the White House comes at a diplomatically sensitive moment, with the United Kingdom deeply at odds with the Trump administration over the Iran war, American tariffs on British exports, and intelligence-sharing concerns raised by Britain's allies in Europe. The visit was deliberately planned with elaborate pageantry that both sides hope will smooth over the strains in the special relationship. King Charles met privately with President Trump at the White House and is also expected to address a joint session of Congress on Tuesday, a rare honor reserved for the closest of American allies. The Virginia Supreme Court heard arguments Monday in a Republican-led legal challenge to the congressional redistricting amendment that Virginia voters narrowly approved just 1 week earlier. Republican lawyers argued the amendment was passed in violation of the state's constitutional process because the first legislative vote in favor occurred while early voting was already underway for the November general election, meaning, they argued, the vote took place during rather than before the relevant election. Democratic lawyers defended the amendment's validity, arguing that Election Day under federal law and constitutional precedent is a single day in November, and that the legislature's first vote preceded that date. A ruling from the Virginia Supreme Court could invalidate the voter-approved map before a single congressional district is redrawn. Florida's Republican-controlled state legislature convened a special session Tuesday at Governor Ron DeSantis' direction to redraw the state's congressional map in a sweeping Republican gerrymander that could shift as many as 5 House seats from Democratic to Republican. DeSantis has declared the state's 2010 Fair Districts Amendment, a voter-approved constitutional provision banning partisan gerrymandering, unconstitutional, arguing that the United States Supreme Court is expected to issue a ruling in the near future invalidating it. Legal scholars and voting rights advocates called the move extraordinary and unprecedented, noting that no court has ever ruled the Fair Districts Amendment unconstitutional. If the map passes and survives court challenges, Florida's delegation could shift from a 20-8 Republican advantage to as many as 24-4. The United States Supreme Court heard oral arguments Monday in a major Fourth Amendment case centered on geofencing, a law enforcement technique that allows police to obtain records from technology companies like Google, identifying every device that was located near a crime scene during a specific time window. The case arose from a bank robbery in Virginia in which police used a geofencing warrant to identify the suspect through Google's database. Most justices across ideological lines appeared skeptical of both sides' most extreme positions, with conservatives worried about government overreach and liberals concerned about creating a loophole that would allow warrantless searches. A decision is expected by late June and could fundamentally reshape how police use technology in criminal investigations. Elon Musk appeared in federal court in San Jose, California on Monday as a plaintiff in his lawsuit against OpenAI and Chief Executive Officer Sam Altman, alleging that Altman misled him into co-founding and funding OpenAI as a nonprofit before secretly transforming it into a for-profit company. Musk's lawsuit claims the conversion of OpenAI from a nonprofit to a capped-profit corporate structure breached the founding agreement, defrauded Musk, and violated California nonprofit law. Altman has denied the allegations, saying the company followed all appropriate legal procedures. The trial is expected to last several weeks and could have major implications for how artificial intelligence companies structure themselves and raise capital going forward. The war power's 60-day statutory deadline for the Iran war falls on Wednesday, April 29th, tomorrow, and the Trump administration has so far not submitted a formal war powers certification to Congress, nor formally transmitted a request for an authorization for use of military force. Republican Senators Susan Collins of Maine, Tom Tillis of North Carolina, and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska have all publicly stated they expect the administration to act by the deadline. Trump told reporters Monday the war could come to an end very soon, and that the new Iranian proposal was under careful review. The White House has not yet stated whether it will invoke the War Powers Resolution's 30-day emergency extension provision. The Senate passed the $70 billion Department of Homeland Security reconciliation funding bill late Saturday on a party-line vote of 51-48, sending the legislation to the House. House Speaker Mike Johnson said Monday he intends to bring the bill to the floor for a vote as soon as possible, given the renewed urgency created by Saturday's shooting at the Correspondents' Dinner. The bill funds Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Border Patrol for 3 years through the budget reconciliation process, bypassing the Senate filibuster. Republicans hold a 218-213 majority in the House, meaning they can afford 0 defections on a party-line vote. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche and United States Attorney Jeanine Pirro held a formal press conference Monday afternoon at the Justice Department, flanked by FBI Director Kash Patel, to announce the full scope of the federal terrorism charges against Cole Allen. Pirro said in prepared remarks that Allen intended to bring down as many of the high-ranking cabinet officials as he could, and called it an attempted assassination of the President of the United States and an enumerated crime of terrorism. Blanche confirmed that the Secret Service agent who was struck in the chest by gunfire was wearing a ballistic vest that worked, and added that the officer fired 5 times at Allen during the confrontation. A preliminary hearing in Allen's case is scheduled for May 11th. Now, turning to Washington, and the latest actions from the current administration. Here are 10 significant developments from the administration this week. President Trump convened a Situation Room meeting Monday with top national security officials to formally review and discuss Iran's new peace proposal, which offers to reopen the Strait of Hormuz in exchange for ending the American naval blockade, while deferring all nuclear issues to a later phase of negotiations. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed the meeting and said the proposal was under active consideration. Secretary of State Rubio said Iran appears serious about finding a way to buy itself more time, while reiterating that no final deal can be reached without addressing the nuclear issue. The administration is weighing whether to accept a staged process or insist on addressing nuclear enrichment in any first-phase agreement. Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi's meetings in Moscow Monday with President Putin, in which Putin pledged Russian support for Iran and received a personal message from Iran's supreme leader, have added a significant new dimension to the diplomatic landscape around the peace talks. Russia's ambassador to the United Nations separately told the Security Council Monday that Iran has the right to limit traffic through the Strait of Hormuz under international law because it is a coastal state under attack. The Trump administration rejected that characterization. The Kremlin's involvement raises concern among American officials that Russia could provide Iran with intelligence, technology, or economic assistance that complicates the blockade's economic pressure campaign. The administration welcomed King Charles III and Queen Camilla to the White House on Monday for the first British royal state visit to Washington in 35 years. President Trump and the First Lady hosted a formal arrival ceremony on the South Lawn. The visit is a carefully choreographed diplomatic effort to repair a relationship strained by American tariffs, the Iran war, and tensions over intelligence sharing in Europe. King Charles is scheduled to address a joint session of Congress on Tuesday, a rare distinction reflecting the depth of the long-standing alliance between the two nations. The War Powers Resolution 60-day deadline falls Wednesday, April 29th, and the administration has not yet publicly disclosed its plan for complying with or extending the timeline. Under the 1973 law, Trump may invoke a 30-day extension by certifying in writing to Congress that unavoidable military necessity requires it. Republican senators, including Collins, Tillis, and Murkowski, expect either that certification or a formal AUMF by Wednesday. Trump's statement Monday that the war could end very soon was widely interpreted as an attempt to signal flexibility without committing to a specific legal course of action before the deadline. The DOJ's formal terrorism charges against Cole Allen include attempted assassination of the president, illegal interstate transportation of a firearm to commit a felony, and discharge of a firearm during a crime of violence. United States Attorney Pirro confirmed that additional charges are possible as the investigation continues, and that the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit is actively involved. Allen's manifesto, sent by email at 8:40 p.m. the night of the attack, named current and former administration officials as targets. Allen had previously donated $25 to Kamala Harris's presidential campaign, participated in the Wide Awake's leftist activist group, and attended a No Kings protest in California. The Senate-passed DHS reconciliation bill is now before the House for a final vote, with Speaker Johnson under pressure to pass it swiftly. Trump invoked Saturday's shooting directly on Sunday, telling Fox News that the Secret Service agents who responded heroically are among those not currently receiving a paycheck because of the DHS shutdown, which is now in its 70th day. The bill funds ICE and Border Patrol for 3 years using the reconciliation process, bypassing the filibuster. The House vote could come as early as this week, and a single Republican defection would defeat the legislation given the current majority of 218 to 213. The DeSantis Florida Redistricting Plan, which would shift the state's congressional delegation from 20 Republican seats and 8 Democratic seats to as many as 24 Republican and 4 Democratic seats, began its special session Tuesday. DeSantis's legal rationale rests on his own office's declaration that the state's 2010 Fair Districts Amendment is unconstitutional, an argument no court has endorsed. Multiple lawsuits are expected to be filed as soon as a new map passes. Democrats, including House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, have called the move an unconstitutional power grab, while DeSantis has said he welcomes the legal challenge. The Virginia Supreme Court's Monday hearing on the redistricting challenge will be decided before any new congressional maps can take effect in the state. The court is expected to rule quickly, given the tight timeline for drawing and implementing new maps before November's midterm elections. If the court invalidates the voter-approved amendment, Virginia's congressional map will revert to its current form, and Democrats will lose the potential 4-seat gain they anticipated. The outcome in Virginia, combined with Florida's redistricting session, means the national House map heading into November remains in a state of extraordinary legal and political flux. The United States Supreme Court's geofencing case is one of the most significant Fourth Amendment privacy cases in more than a decade, and its outcome could affect millions of Americans. Technology companies, including Google and Microsoft, have filed briefs in the case arguing that geofencing warrants sweep up data from innocent people who happen to be near a crime scene, raising fundamental questions about privacy in the digital age. Law enforcement agencies have filed briefs on the other side, arguing that geofencing is an essential modern crime-fighting tool that has solved hundreds of cases that would otherwise remain unsolved. A ruling is expected by late June, before the court's term ends. Trump's national security team is also managing ongoing concerns about the American military's Patriot missile inventories, with defense officials confirming this week that the United States has already expended approximately half of its available Patriot missile interceptors during the Iran war. Rebuilding those stockpiles could take up to 4 years and cost tens of billions of dollars. The revelation has intensified calls in Congress for a formal war supplemental funding request, as Patriot batteries are a primary defense against Iranian ballistic and cruise missile threats, and are also critical to the defense of Israel, South Korea, and other American allies worldwide. That's your full briefing for Tuesday, April 28, 2026. I'm Nova Blake. Stay informed, stay ahead. We'll see you next time.